I'm Elaine Gibson, and I'm talking to Mike Griffin about his life in Weston Turville. Over to you.
Hello, my name's Mike Griffin. I was born on the 14th of the 7th, 37. And I had a brother who was 15 months younger than myself. I was born in the old Flint cottage down on Bates's Corner.
Is that Church End?
Church End, yeah. And from there we moved up to the house next door to Appleby Millbank, next door to my uncle, who had a daughter by the name of Iris. And my parents, my mother was born in Ludgershall, and my father was born in Weston Turville.
And what were their names?
Cyril John Griffin and Hilda Jane Wallington.
Your father died in the war,
Yeah,
I believe?
my father was killed, got called up in 39, and he was killed in 1945, March 1945, in action in Germany. A few years after that, my mother remarried and married Willie Watson, who has since died, and she now lives in Walton Place, Weston Turville.
And she's 88?
She's 88, coming up 89.
Fantastic.
I still live in Weston Turville. I live in 24 Walton Place, Weston Turville. My memories of the thatched cottages opposite my house in Church End, they used to step out onto the road.
Are these the ones that were by the checkers?
That's it, they got burnt down by a chap called John Lonsdale, who was a friend of mine. He was exploring the loft when the candle must have fell over and caught fire, and instead of him trying to knock it out, panicked and went down, and up it went.
So
Well,
that was in 1947, roughly?
Yes, it probably was about that time. I forget now exactly when it was, but it was probably 1947 time.
And what about the other people who lived in those 4 cottages?
Well, there was Miss North, who was Miss Riley's nanny.
Mm-hmm.
She was there. She was 100. Then there was John Lonsdale and his sister Jean, and I believe there was a baby by the name of Martin. The next door neighbours, I think, was Lewis, I think, or something like that. And then there was, I believe, an Atkins. I'm not too sure, I forget. But they were the 4 houses there. Below that there used to be a little old cottage there with one little room at the front and a little kitchenette at the back, and the same upstairs. And Tanky Taylor used to live in there with his wife.
And who was Tanky Taylor?
He was the village bucket and cesspit cleaner and emptier.
Right.
And
but he didn't own his cottage?
No, I believe that belonged to
Billy Wakefield?
Billy Wakefield, the same as our houses did. And on that row where we used to live was Mrs. Hall and Mr. Hall, Mr. and Mrs. Rouse, somebody who I can't remember, but later on Mr. and Mrs. Hyde moved in. And then following that is where my uncle used to live.
Your uncle being?
Will Griffin and Vi Griffin with their daughter Iris. And we used to live in the next one. And the Weston one was next door to Tom Axtell, who used to have chickens and pigs, and his father used to keep the pigs and that. and the ducks, and they used to rear all these ducks and chickens, and they used to swim on the brook at the back, the ducks.
So when you say next to you, are you talking about Appleby Millbank?
Yeah, well, one behind it.
Behind Appleby Millbank?
Yeah, but it's all joined up, if you know what I mean. There's a house in the front and another house at the back.
Right. So when you're talking about the cottages and who lived there, you're talking from the Forge end coming down towards Appleby Millbank?
That's it, yeah.
Great. You went to school in the village?
Oh, yeah, started school in the village, as everybody did at that time. And most people used to walk, no matter where they were in the village. And plenty of patches in your clothes, mind you, not like it is today. And
what kind of things did you do in your free time after school? Can you remember some of your activities?
Well, yeah, most of us was always looking to see if we could earn some money somewhere. And I joined the Cubs, and the Cub hut was down the main street behind Pear Tree Cottage, so you could still walk the footpath round there, and there's a house there now. But that was where the school Cub and Scout hut used to be. And I think it was one of the Netherway girls used to be the Cub leader.
So what other things did you do?
Well, when it was becoming harvest time or something like that, we used to go down the mill and see if there was a job going. And that was with my mate Joe Bunce or somebody like that, one of the lads. And we decided to get the hooks out. Charlie Purse would say, go and dob some thistles and stuff like that. So way we used to go dobbing nettles and thistles all day long.
Can you remember how much you got paid for that?
Oh, we got a couple of bob, yeah, about 2 or 3 shillings or something like that. All depends how long he wanted us to do it, you see. Well, then there was painting the barn, tarring the barns. We used to get jobs for doing that. And the old Dutch barn, we used to get up on the roof and tar that with these long sticks with a brush on the end. And we used to have the tar brought round in a 40-gallon barrel. And then we used to go up these fruit-picking ladders and tar the top. And
is that mill barn that's still there as a house now that you're talking about, up Mill Lane?
No, a lot of them are... Some of them are still there. The one opposite the hut is still there. That used to be a bullpen, plus corn store. Then there was pigs. Then there was the horse room there where they used to keep the shire horses, stables, and the tack room was above, plus the hay loft was upstairs.
So where was the farm itself down Mill Lane? Was it the mill or was there a farm?
It's the mill house was the farm, and the buildings are all around it. Now, I can't describe to you how it was because it's altered so much. But if you go down, the first building you came to, just in front of the moat, because there was a moat by the side of this weeping ash tree that went up towards the houses in Church End. And the Dutch barn was facing along that way in front of it. And to the left of that was some barns surrounding the yard where the cattle used to stay if it got too rough in the winter time, and they were fed in the yard. Off of that, these barns, at the top they had a place where they could wire in chickens during the winter time, because the chickens in the summer used to go out in their hen houses and be pulled up the fields with horses and left up there to clean off the stubble and live off the stubble as well as going into the orchard. And the others were used as a milking room and cattle store.
So they were very busy farms.
Oh, very much so. Yes, and a lot of the ricks used to stand out in front of the Dutch barn. That first piece of ground was used as a rick yard, right, as well as the other side of the road. It was corn ricks and hay ricks.
And who owned the farm at that time?
Mr. Charles Purcell, very good man. And one of the best, in fact.
Did you work at any of the other farms?
Occasionally, if he'd got nothing for us there, we used to go up to Cox's. Myself, Joe Bunce and old Len Brooks. We used to go up there quite regularly if there was nothing on down the mill.
And what kind of things did you do there?
Well, we used to do shocking and all that, the same as we done during the harvest time down the mill.
Shocking?
Yeah.
What's shocking?
Well, when the binder had been round, I used to throw the sheaves out. And you used to have to go round, picking them up and standing them facing towards the monument with the gully down the middle so that the draft could go through and dry them. And you used to have to stand them up in 4s, 6s or 8s, and I was all facing that way. And the best way to do that was how many rows you was taking. It all depended how many of you was doing it. And you used to keep going round and round the field until you completely got to the middle. And it was either in 4s, 6s or 8s you used to shock them up like that, stand them up like that in a V-shape.
Like little tents?
That's it. And they'd got to face that monument, else you was for it.
And who was the farmer there?
Mr. Munger, and then later Mr. Cox.
Right.
Yeah, Bert Cox.
So you also used to do picking, I believe, in the autumn. What kind of picking did you do in the autumn?
Oh, fruit picking. Oh, yeah, we used to do fruit picking. And we used to get paid by the bushel or half bushel.
What kind of fruit did you pick?
Apples, pears, early river plums, damsons, prunes.
The Aylesbury prunes?
The Aylesbury prunes we used to pick by loads of them.
And what happened to them when they were picked?
Well, Aldridges used to come down and they used to go round practically the whole of the village.
And what did they do with them?
They used to take them to High Wycombe,
Mm-hmm.
where they used to sell them off somewhere, either into the shops, because people were after prunes at that time, and they also used to go for dye making.
What kind of dye making?
Well, for dyeing up clothes and stuff like that. But I didn't delve into that side of it too much. We was too
You were
busy,
a little boy.
Too busy picking them and eating them at the same time.
And I believe with the school you did some picking as well.
Oh, yeah, we used to have to go hips, picking the hips.
The rose hips.
Rose hips, yeah, we used to go all over the shop, picking rose hips and then take them back to school, and they used to weigh them off. You used to either get money, or later on they come up with this chocolate powder. It used to come over from Canada. And dried egg powder. That was all right.
Because this was wartime.
Yeah.
And what about the whore? Did you have to pick the whore as well?
Well, we didn't pick many of them, but they did have them for some reason or other. But they were a bit small, so we used to pick the hips.
Because they were bigger.
Yeah.
And who did you used to pick them with?
Me cousin, any of us used to go out picking them.
Who's your cousin?
Iris. Used to live next door. We used to go off, a gang of us, and with our bags and pick them. We used to use the old blackberry sticks to pull them down if they was too big, you know.
What are blackberry sticks?
Well, they're a stick, but we used to cut out the hedge or the nut that's got a piece angled on it like that. It's the same sort of stick we used to use for dobbing thistles and nettles. You know, you get hold of it and pull it away and then cut them off.
Right.
Same as they used to use when they used to go round the outside of the field before the combine went in, cutting a bit off either side or hooking it off.
Right, that's interesting. Now, said you were saving up your money. You also had a paper round, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And you were saving up your money to buy a bike?
That's it, yeah.
And
you used to walk round with it, walk down there and get your papers in a bag.
Where did you get your papers from?
Down in the main street, opposite Pond Farm. There was a little paper shop there, and it also, at the back of it, had a barber shop. But a chap by the name of Eaton used to do your hair. And next door to that, to start with, was a little cobbler shop. I forget the name of the bloke in there, but he got club foot. But he was a good cobbler. And when that dried up, Salways took it over as a fish and chip shop. And that remained a fish and chip shop for quite a while.
Would the cobbler be Eldridge?
No, it wasn't Eldridge. He worked somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, can we go back to your bicycle? You got your second-hand bike?
Yeah, well, most of us used to walk to start with. And we used to get paid, it's 50p a week now, 10 shillings a week. That was what I got in the end, but to start with, I think I got about 6 shillings a week to start with. And I kept putting that by, and then I went and see old Neville Chamberlain's father, because he was advertising a second-hand bike.
And what was he called?
Well, we used to call him Wido.
Why was that?
Yeah. Well, it was just a nickname that I grew up with. Everybody used to call him Wido. And, but I can't remember his proper name.
What did he do?
He was, used to make coffins and ladders. Quite good at it too, he was. And
was he the undertaker as well?
Yeah, he was an undertaker. Yeah, he was an undertaker. And also, he used to have the petrol pumps and places like that, you know, he used to do that. And he'd got his orchard down Bates Lane. So, quite a busy chap, I think.
So you bought your bicycle?
That's what, I bought my first bike off of Neville's father. And then on, it was quite a bit easier to get around, a bit quicker.
And but, you go cycling with your friends? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, we used to go all over the place. We used to cycle to Presswood to get the cherries, and up in the hills. We used to run up the hills anyway from Weston, up the back of the camp.
We being who? Who did you run around with?
Len Brooks, Joe Bunce, old Mick Dudley came with us at times, and Mick Robinson, Mick Fountain, Chris Russell. Well, there was no end of us. There was a chap by the name of Jimmy Sharp. He used to come with us occasionally. His father kept the butcher's shop at Butcher's Orchard it is now.
So there was quite a group of you.
Oh, yeah.
So you used to also get up to mischief, I believe.
Oh, yeah, we used to get up to mischief, all right. Yeah, pass the parcel and knocking doors and you name it, we was at it.
You mean the parcel on a string and when people bent...
Yeah, we used to get the parcel going and sit out behind the edge over Empress. And so if they come after you, you got plenty of chance to run across the fields and get away, you know.
Where's Empress?
Well, it's up Church End. That's all built on now. It's the field opposite the old rectory, on the right-hand side of the rectory, going up towards the church end, where the church is. And there used to be rabbits in there, come out on the road, and, you know. And the old Billy Bates had his horse out there, a few cattle sometimes.
So somebody did the garden at the rectory, wasn't it? It was the Reverend Wheeler.
Yeah, Reverend Wheeler was another good man. Yeah, very good man, old Reverend Wheeler.
And Fred Walsh.
Yeah, old Fred.
He was the gardener, wasn't he?
He was the gardener there, yeah. And we used to go round there, see if there was a bobber job going. And we used to get put on weeding and digging and, general tidying up.
So when you talk about the rectory, you're talking about Scott's house now, aren't you?
That's it, yeah, not the new rectory, the old one.
Yes, where Dr. Leaper now lives. Yes.
Yeah. And that was I got a big kitchen garden out the back. And little box edges all the way round the outside of it, so you got them to trim up and keep tidy. And at the back of that was a nice big pond. And when we used to have the fetes in there, you used to get penny punt rides round there.
And did you have donkey rides as well?
Donkey rides, and I can remember one day old... what was her name? She come round there with a big basket of fruit as a hat. She was South American.
It'll come to you, don't worry.
Yeah.
But she used to come with what? Fruit?
She used to have a fruit, all these grapes and that on her hat.
Right.
She was a bit of a film star at the time. And she opened the fete on this particular occasion.
Yes. It begins with a C, doesn't it, her name?
Carmen Miranda. That's her
right.
name. Yeah. Yeah. She was quite a good looker, really. You've got very nice dark tan skin and got this basket of fruit on her head as a hat. We all made laugh out of that. Cool.
So how did she come to the village?
Well, she was contacted to see that she would open our fete at that particular time, and she, of course, volunteered, and that's how it came about. And I think Mr. Netherway was a big influence in that department. He was another good man for the village.
And who's he? I haven't heard his name before.
What, Mr. Netherway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he had a... Walt Netherway, I think his name was. I'm not too sure. But I shall have to think about it. You sort of lose track
Where
of
did
these
he
people.
live?
He lived down Bates's Lane in one of old Neville Chamberlain's father's houses. I think it was the second one. You got the first one, then you got the new road in, but it was the one after that, I think. Ena Netherway. If I get thinking about it, I could tell you all their names.
Right. Tell me about the flag cards. You used to save cards and swap them, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, we was into all that sort of thing, fad cards and marbles. And
where did you get the cards from?
Well, they used to come in the cigarette packets.
So were you smoking?
No, we weren't smoking, but a lot of the old chaps used to throw them down and used to go and check the packets, see if there was a fag card in it, Anyway, there was an old lady who used to live near us in Church End by the name of Miss Gin. And we was all frightened of her because she used to wear black. And she used to have these big, long, flowing dresses that used to very near touch the grain, and she used to have this black hat on when she used to go out with a black shawl. So we used to steer clear of her, and she'd got these big box edges up against her door, That was like...
Where did she live?
She lived in Church End, next door to Appleby Millbank. I believe they call it Sean Cottage, or something like that, Sean something. Anyway, that was totally different then, because these old box edges used to make it all look dark in there, Anyway, she died. And I don't know whether it was her brother or some relation of hers. He was in the Merchant Navy. He used to come down about once a month to see her in his Navy uniform. Anyway, when she died, they had a good clear out. And, of course, he called us all in, and that was me and my brother and a few others. And the place was like a treasure house. Fag cards, you name it, the stuff that was in there. Of course, we got all the marbles and the fad cards and other stuff. And, of course, there was fad cards going on all around the blooming place then. Yeah.
Right. And did you play football and cricket and things like
that? Oh,
that?
Yeah, we played a lot of football and cricket at the village school, and that was all done out in Barley Close, where we used to take the mower down and mow the bit where we was going to have the cricket.
So, so people know, Barley Close, as it is now, a built-up area, wasn't built up. It was a field, wasn't it, called Barley Close? Well,
Barley Close, as it is built up now, was built up then.
Was it?
Yeah.
And the field was at the end?
There were different houses. They were put up in about the 1920s, I think, the first lot of Barley Close houses, just after the First World War. And the field today was the same field then. It's just the same, no further intrusion into it. So you went up beside the Miss Priest's cottage, where the footpath is, and put it all over the fence, all style. Mowed your bit of, what's the name? Always took a shovel with you, mind, because you had to move the cow muck off. And, of course, when you was bowling, and if there was happened to be a strategic cow pat in the right place, you used to try and drop the ball on that and splatter up and help to get them out.
Put the bowler off, I would thought.
Put the batsman off, yeah. And the same thing used to apply when you was playing football. You used to go out there with a couple of shovels and clear off the cow pats.
And when you went for school lunches, did you stay for school lunches?
Yeah, we stayed for school when they started the school lunches up. We had to go up to the canteen. At that particular time, we were still doing the allotments. I think we had about 60 pollard allotments down the Warn.
That would be down West End?
Yeah, that was all taken on for Dig for Victory. And that supplied the canteen with most of its vegetables.
And the canteen was
in the church rooms.
Right. Do you think that's why your generation are still keen allotment people? Because it was nurtured when you were younger?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it was nurtured, it was ordered. You went down whether you liked it or not.
Now, in Church Lane, you had the forge. Tell me about the forge.
Oh, that was where old Tim Kempsey used to be, in the forge. Yeah. He used to have his prisoner there working. And
you better explain that.
Well, during the war, they had a load of prisoners come over. And they was all billeted over at Sedrup there.
That's near the Bugle Horn.
That's near the Bugle Horn in Bishopstone. Not Bishopstone, Stone. And they used to have to go round the farms. So many farms had either one or two people, whatever they required, to work on the farms. And of course old Tim had this bloke, and he was quite a handy sort of fella. He used to make these rings and stuff out of perspex or, garden implements. And he also was a good basket maker.
This is the prisoner?
This is the prisoner, yeah. Tim used to get on with his shoes and all that, and he used to help him. And it was a big old pan-tiled place. It was down by the footpath, opposite to the little thatched cottage in Church End, where a bloke by the name of George Lilly used to live at one side, and Mr. and Mrs. Saunders, or Mrs. Saunders, because Mr. Saunders had died. I don't know whether he got killed in the First World War or not. But there was a Rodney Saunders,
Is that the thatch cottage next to the Checkers?
That's it, yeah. Yeah. They were in there. And old Tim used to, as I say, have all these shire horses come in, 2 and 3 and 4 at a time sometimes, to be shod.
And they went into the building itself?
And they stood inside the forge until it was their turn to be shod. Or if he'd got that full up, they used to tether them outside.
On the pear tree?
Yeah, on the pear tree, which was also used for shoeing for some of them. Especially some of these hunters are a bit frisky and that. And he used to tie a strap round them, round their bellies to stop them kicking, because they was a bit fiery, some of them.
Did the forge have bellows, and did the prisoner have to work the bellows?
Yeah, he carried on making the shoes, or starting to make them, so that while Tim was shoeing them, or he'd take off the old shoes of the horses that were already on there. So it's sort of a two-man affair where he was doing one job, or if Tim was shoeing a horse, he'd be working the bellows and, just tapering off the shoe, whichever it needed. And
did they do other iron work, such as gates and things like that?
I believe he did do a bit of iron work. He used to mend or make a spade or something like that, or a fork, mend a fork, and they used to take stuff round like that, make hoes and.
And did the prisoner have to go back to camp every night?
Oh yeah.
And
I
were
think
they
he was picked up about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening. Mm-hmm. He had to jump back up on the back of the lorry, and they used to go round to the next farm or whatever. And then when they got their load for picking up, they used to go back to Cedrup. Yeah.
Do you know what nationality these prisoners were?
A lot of them were Italians. Yeah.
I thought so, because we have the Italian.
And they always most of them used to have this brown uniform with a big yellow patch on the front and the back. Yeah.
But I believe there wasn't any problem with any of the prisoners.
Oh no, they was as good as gold. Yeah. I believe there was a German down the mill at some time or other. He was another good bloke.
Tell me about the farms around in Weston Turville.
Well, there was Mill Farm, which had got Charlie Purcell to it. Mm-hmm. And at that time there was Will Whedon, I think, was down there. There's one in Tom Piddington.
Where was... Tom Piddington worked at...
Mill Farm.
Mill Farm.
Yeah. Tom Piddington. They all worked down there at some time or other. Will Whedon.
If we just...
Gurney, Alf Gurney, he used to work down there too.
Well, these are all at Mill Farm?
Yeah, Mill Farm workers.
But if we go through the village to Holton end of the village and come this way, naming the farms, right? At the bottom you've got, is it Brook
Farm?
Brook Farm.
Yeah.
There was that one is at the far end of the village.
That's
isn't
it, yeah.
And then you would come up and you would come to Fir Farm?
No, there was that farm, yeah. And then there was Boy Green Farm.
Right.
Which belonged to the Bunces.
Mm-hmm.
Which was Alf Bunce's father's farm.
Okay. And you said there was Dixon's farm, was it?
That was it. Dixon's and Mrs. Barge. Mr. and Mrs. Barge used to have that before Dixon's.
And Dixon's farm would be where?
That's what they call Brook Farm down at...
It's called Brook Farm now?
That's right, yeah, it was called Brook Farm then, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's down by the bend.
That's it, by the S-bend there, yeah.
Turning. And then you would come up, and as you say, there was Mill Farm. What about Tom Caudry? Was he not involved with...
He was down there then, during the war, yeah.
What did he do?
He was a farmhand down there, yeah. Yeah, he became farm foreman in the end.
And did he work the mill?
No, I think the mill stopped working as a water mill just before the war, I think. And it could have been working during the war, but I never saw it actually working as water mill. But it used to have a electric motor, and we used to work it then and put the sacks in, and they used to go up through the floors right to the top, and then you used to fill your hoppers up, your bins up, and then you used to do all the grinding. God, that was a noisy job, especially when you got field beans going through. God, it used to deafen you.
Right.
That's when we was grinding up the meal for the pigs and stuff like that, you know.
So if you come down Mill Lane, you've then got Fir Farm.
That's it, Fir Farm's next, which belonged to the Tompkinses.
Was that quite a big farm?
No.
It was just a small one.
Just a very small farm then.
Because their land has now got wheelwrights built on it, hasn't it?
That's it, yeah. And there was a person, she was a good old girl really, bit eccentric, was Polly Tompkins. And her house, she used to organise trips to Southend and that, you know, or somewhere like that round the seaside, Clacton.
So did Polly Tompkins live in Fir Farm?
No, that was a relation lived in Fir Farm. She was I think she was a widow, and she was a bit eccentric because her house was full of clutter.
Where was her house?
Well, it's been knocked down now, but it used to stand opposite Fir Farm, end onto the road.
Right.
And then there was a lot of barns there, and behind her was where all the forges used to be. And most of the work that the Tompkins did at that particular time before the war was all to do with Rothschilds. They used to do a lot of Rothschilds work, because there was about 6 or 7 forges all in a right straight line up there.
What, down where Wheelwrights is now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they make wheels and
Yeah, they used to do everything.
Of stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought that the Wheelwrights business was where the shops are now.
That was another part of it.
That was
Oh yeah, that was another part on the corner of New Road. Yeah.
So there's quite.
That was. I think they used to make carts and stuff like that up there, because Billy Bunch used to work there. That's where he was apprenticed up there.
So did this take a lot of the men in the village for work?
Oh yeah, yeah. He was a good employer for the village. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't work for the Rothschilds, which a good many people did from Weston, you worked for the local people. You see, or secondly, you used to work for Rothschilds, so although they weren't working directly, indirectly they were working for Rothschilds.
Right. Let's go back to the farms. I'm trying to think, if I'm walking along, which is the next farm you come to. It would be up Bates Lane.
Pond Farm.
Pond Farm.
That was the next one, opposite the shops. Well, I never knew that has got much land.
And opposite Pond Farm was Middlefield.
That's it. There was a lot of barns over there, which again, that used to belong to the Tompkinses.
Right.
And when they sold that up, Eustace Bunce bought that. And he started dropping his coal down there. And when I was on strike, we went working for him. Joe Bunce, my mate, he used to work for old Whippet. And
Whippet being?
Eustace Bunce. That was his nickname from going back years, Whippet. Anyway, we worked for when I was on strike. In 1956, I think it is, or 7. 1957.
This was a printing strike.
Yeah, we was on strike at Hazel's, and it was for about 6 or 7 weeks. And I'd done a bit of work for them when they'd got a coal truck in at Stoke. He used to have a 12-ton truck in sometimes. And me and old Joe Bunch used to go up there and shovel it in bags and take it round in a day. So
I've got to get this straight. In Middlefield,
yeah,
he used to have his coal.
Yeah, when he bought it, he used to have that was before the shops.
Right, but I thought the coal merchant lived down opposite Holton Lane.
No, that was another coal merchant. That was Stan Bates. Right. That was Trevor's oldest son. He used to have a coal merchant's down there, yeah. And he used to get his coal from up at Stoke Station. So
the train would bring in a load.
Yeah,
and then
they'd drop off so many trucks.
Right.
Whether it was a 10-ton truck or a 12-ton truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then they used to go up there, old Stan with his horse and cart. And old Jack Brooks was his workman. Len's father, my mate's father. And they used to load it up and then they used to deliver it. And what we used to do, if Eustace didn't want it all delivered, we used to dump it down the yard. And he'd also got another yard behind Humphrey Bunce's, right, which was his brother's place up School Lane next to the school. There was a big coal yard there.
Yes. That became a removal place at one time, didn't it?
That's it.
And now it's been built
after the coal, that became a removal. Well, we used to dump it down there in the sacks. This is the one down Main Street opposite Fir Farm, Lodge Farm. Pond Farm. And because soon afterwards, old Alan Dixon took up a piece of the barns, which was next door to the house that's now just been sold, where the Rickards used to live, which was dead opposite the pond. He took up a business there, old Alan, because his father kept Brook Farm and run a little car business there, mending cars and that.
So Brook Farm was where?
Brook Farm was right down the bottom end towards Alton Turn there.
And is that where the old fire engine is now standing?
That's it, yeah.
That is where you're talking about?
Yeah, that's Brook Farm there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Near Anstey Brook?
That's it.
Right.
And, well, as I say, old Whippet used to take it round in his lorry.
I was going to say, was it a cart or it was a lorry?
No, Whippet always had a lorry.
Right.
Yeah.
There weren't many cars in it.
He bought a lorry during the war because he was working for the ministry, carting stuff around, you know. But old Stan kept to his horse and cart.
Right. Now, we've mentioned the Munger's farm, the Cox's farm, haven't we? And we've also mentioned most of the other farms, as far as I know. What about West End Farm? You mentioned that in passing. Did you know much about West End Farm?
Well, I didn't do any work for Mr. Gadsden because he'd got 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Gadsden, what's the other one's name? Can't think of her name. There's daughters as well. She still lives along the top road, I think.
Did you also work, was there a farm in Marroway? Or was the fields there belonging to the Mungers and people like that? Yeah, the
fields up Marroway all belonged to the Mungers and the Coxes.
Right.
I used to walk up and down with the old horse up there.
And I believe all the fields had different names.
Oh, yeah, they did, yeah.
And everybody knew them by name.
Yeah. Although I must admit I forgot most of the names, but beetles, and that comes to mind up there.
And there would be barley field. And
used to be the acres up by the canal from Upperson Down mill farm.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Long Hill, and can't think of the names of them at the moment.
Don't worry about it.
There's Empress, as I say, next door to Down Church End, opposite the old rectory.
So, what about the Robinsons? They had a farm, didn't they?
Well, he had a little small holding sort of a thing, yeah. He used to have a couple of cows and a few store cattle.
And Aylesbury ducks?
And Aylesbury ducks used to be on the pond.
Now, where was his house, his bungalow?
Well, his little, opposite the Five Bells.
Yes.
Well, there was a little iron gate there. And it's next door to where that little bungalow is.
Which was a forge.
I believe his name was Kirkland when that was a forge. Anyway, each side was a little orchard. And there used to be an old track up to his little bungalow right at the end. And that was right down near the hedge of the playing fields. So you got a long track down there, but in front was fruit trees, apple trees, and that holly tree that's there now on the grass verge was inside Robinson's garden at that time, just inside the edge.
Right.
And there was, up that path, next to the holly tree, there was a little footpath with a iron white gate, and that used to take you down to the front door.
And he had the Aylesbury ducks on the pond?
He had the Aylesbury ducks down on the pond, and they used to stay in a barn next door to where the cow used to go in, and where he used to milk it in that barn down there.
So who else kept the Aylesbury ducks in the village?
Oh, there was quite a few at one time. As I say, old George Pope used to keep it down at the Crown, down West End. And then there was Mr. and Mrs. Jamison. They kept ducks. They kept ducks for a long time at Burnside. And they used to have a few... Old Trevor Bates used to have ducks.
Were these the Aylesbury ducks?
His was Khaki Campbell's mostly.
Right.
Yeah, he had them for laying, old Trevor did.
Okay.
And so did Stan have Khaki Campbell's down at his place.
Now, you've mentioned orchards and fruit picking. There must have been lots of orchards in Weston Turville.
Yes, there was.
Give me a quick rundown. You said Bates Lane was
Bates
all
Lane,
orchards.
well, on the left as you turn into Bates Lane, that was Robinson's orchard. That was full of apples and prunes. And on the right, that belonged to Alf Bunce's father. Now, that was all prunes and a few apples, and I think there was a cherry tree or two in there as well. And they used to keep their milking cows in there to keep it down. And that orchard carried on right till the first old house, or oldish, on the right, which was where old Ted Redding used to live. And that is virtually opposite where you turn into Watermill Way. There's a pair there. Now, the other side was Redding's orchard, and that went right up behind the old thatched cottages that I've been talking to you, right on the corner, and behind old Bob Green's house, where his mother and father used to live, and Reg and Horace Bunce. Right. That come right up to the back of their place.
And what about in...
And then there was Trevor's. He had an orchard.
Where was that?
On the left-hand side, past where old Mrs. Piddington's shop was. Mm-hmm. You can still see the houses there now. Right on that bend where those old box bushes stick right out.
And what about World's End Lane? Was there orchards up there? Or was that just farmland?
That was just farmland on the right. There was the bungalows on the left, which were at one time within the allotments. And they sold that off the frontage for that. There was a few trees out on the Church Farm.
And there was Mrs. Riley's orchard, wasn't there, in Main Street?
Mrs. Riley had a few fruit trees at the back there, yeah. Damsons and prunes and stuff. A few apples. And there was another bit of an orchard. As I say, Robinson had a bit of an orchard in there. And I think that was about it.
What about down Holton End? Was there orchards down there?
Well, old Dixon had a few trees out at the back of the farm, but nothing on the scale that Mill Farm had, because they had about 10 acres of orchard, virtually.
Tell me about the pubs in the village.
Well, the Crown down West End used to be owned by a bloke by the name of, I believe, George Pope. And he used to breed ducks and pheasants and partridges and all that down on what they called the acres below the allotments. And he could see at that time from his bedroom window, he could see down the fields and make sure that everything was okay with these arcs and whatnot, you know. And that was his sort of sideline and living. Shandus used to be the alehouse and a saddlery, leather, making harness and all that sort of stuff. And the Checkers, I only ever knew it as a pub. And George Woodley used to keep all the lawn at the side immaculate, and all the stones were painted white. And he was a very good gardener. His garden at the back used to have all the vegetables imaginable in it.
I think the paraplegics used to.
Oh, yes, during the war, the old injured soldiers and airmen and all that used to come down in their wheelchairs, and they was all dressed in blue with red ties, and a lot of them used to have people push them down, and they used to come and sit out on the grass. And old George and his wife used to come out with a beer on a tray, and they used to sit there chopping away, you know. And they used to spend a good afternoon.
Now, the Checkers was opposite where you lived.
That's right, yeah.
And I believe you used to get up to mischief when you were younger there.
Oh, yeah, we used to chuck stones on old George's tin roof at the side, and he used to come out with a bamboo pole, and he used to throw it at us with their legs.
And the drinkers used to come on their bicycles?
Yeah, old Neville Chamberlain's father and a few more used to come round on their bikes at that time, and they used to put them up against the wall outside. And of course, for a bit of devilment, we used to get a spanner and go round and creep up when it was dark and undo the saddle stem and turn it round so it was facing the back tyre, and then do it up again. Most of them used to have a habit at that particular time. They never used to cock their leg over the crossbar and over the back of the bike. They used to get on from the back. They used to have a step on the back wheel with about 3 or 4 inches long, where they used to put one foot on the back of that and then push it along and then jump up over the back. I suppose it was a knock-on from the old penny farthing days and that, but that's what they used to do. You could hear them swearing when they used to come out and they'd turn their saddles round. That was a right old carry-on at the Checkers. Well, down the Plough, that was another good old pub. That was a proper man's pub, that was. That was where we used to have all our football dinners when in the late 1950s and early 60s, when we used to win the leagues and cups and whatnot.
We used to have suckling pig down there.
Oh, we had a suckling pig, yeah. Old Tom Cooper, who was the landlord at the time, got us a suckling pig, and we had that down there. We had quite a do. All the president and most of the team that could attend that night. We had a very good do that night.
Can you remember roughly when that would have been?
That was either 1961 or 62. because we had a spate of winning that time. I think it started in about 1950, 58, 59 season, and we won the league and cup. Then we won the league. Then we won the league and cup again, I think. And during all that time, we either had a session up at the Five Bells, because Taffy Davis, who was the landlord of the Five Bells at that particular time, give us a do up there. And Tom Cooper, he gave us a do, and the Suckling Pig down at the Plough another time.
Can I go back to the Five Bells, because I believe it was more a beer house?
Oh yeah, it used to be a beer house. It never had a spirit licence. That was when Cliff McKnight's mother and father kept it, and that was a good old pub. That was darts and dominoes and crib and all that sort of thing, you know, like the general thing it used to go on. And there was crib leagues and dart leagues and domino leagues, and you could spend a good night in there. Quite reasonable price, not like it is today, £2 and £3 a pint. Yes, that was very good in the old Five Bells. Black Horse, well, I never knew that as a pub, but that was long before my time. But that was the Axtalls used to have that. Old Mrs. Axtall, she married an Ellis, and I was in there sweeping their chimney once, and she showed me a picture of the Black Horse when her grandfather used to have it. And she said it was just a pub, you know, an old alehouse there, and there was a pond in the front with geese on it. And I knew all the Ellis because old Des Ellis used to play for us. Des and Bernard. John never played, and then there was Frank.
Is this football or cricket?
Football.
And you better tell us where the Black Horse is now. What's it called now?
It's the Brills now. And virtually the same, although it had a bit of a fire and had all the roof renewed and some of the interior, but basically it's still the same. Still a big part of it's wattle and daub. And the pond's no longer there, of course. That's all been filled in, but you can see the outline of it. And round the back, there's a big old cherry tree that's been there for donkey's years. It's a bit on the way out now, but when the old bucket system was on there's an old cess tank down there with the old Harvey Wakefield's name on it when he was a baker, when he was a builder, you know. So he built that cess tank for that. Prior to that, it was a bucket in the shed job.
There were some other pubs in the village, probably before your time. Do you know anything about them?
Yes, there was the Magpie, which is where Neville Chamberlain lives at the moment. That was a pub, and when they were putting a new front on there, you could smell the beer, which had been spilt years and years previously, in the clay that they were digging out at that particular time.
That would be about the 1970s?
70s or sometime like that, to 80s.
70s to 80s,
yeah.
Yes, late 70s.
Yeah.
And there was Sop's Hole?
That was another alehouse. I used to go around the back there. That's down Bates Lane, right on the bend. But they built another single-storey extension which blocks that roadway right off. So you have to go down through the back garden now, as was then, because Ken Rawlinson's grandparents used to live in that house when I used to deliver the papers. And then you could go straight through, but then, as I say, they built this single story right across that roadway round to Sots Hole. So you now have to go through a roadway that they built in the back garden right the way round the side to get to it.
They built a bungalow, didn't they?
They built 2 bungalows in the gardens.
Yes, I think
in the garden of Sotsol.
Alan Maisel lives in one.
Alan Maisel lives in the first one, but I don't know who lives in the second.
No.
But the old boy who used to live in there at a particular time, that was a right derelict-looking place. He must have had buckets upstairs to stop the rain coming through, you know, to stop the floorboards getting all wet and that, because the roof was so badly neglected.
It had a tree growing out of it.
That's it, yeah. Now you could see corrugated tin he'd put up there to try and block the holes up. And so
the other pub was the Vine, wasn't it?
The Vine, yes, which I know a fair bit about. That was belonged to the Bunces, were the landlords. The last landlords, anyway, that I can recall, having been there. Although I didn't know it myself, I was told later that Reg and Horace Bunce were born there. Reg, being the last of the family, was only about 2 or 3 when he left. And
it's called Burnside.
It's called Burnside now, yes. But years ago, the main road used to run through the front of the Vine Public House. It didn't go where it goes now. It used to swing round and come down there and then go out across the allotments to join up to World's End Lane. And for a long time, you could still see the rut that went through and into the allotments, but of course it's been filled in a bit since the new people have taken over the place. And
but you used to work there, didn't you?
I used to do a fair bit. So did Will. Used to work there.
Will who?
Griffin. He used to work there, and before that, Roy Langston's father used to work there.
And what kind of things did you do apart from sweeping chimneys?
Well, they used to do the gardens and that, you know. There used to be a nice little kitchen garden up the top. And
who lived there then?
Jamisons. Mr. and Mrs. Jamison used to live there. Very nice lady. And we used to do the rose pruning and lawn mowing and you name it. We used to looking after the chickens or picking a chicken for her for Christmas or a duck. Something like that, you know. Fencing and...
And do you remember his paintings?
Oh, yeah. He used to have a big studio full of paintings. And we used to have Christmas do's up there, where the blokes some people used to dress up as Father Christmas, and all the kids like us, we used to go up there and get our parcels and toys and all that, you know. It was very good.
Did you ever go to the manor house?
Yes, I used to have fetes up there. Yeah, some good fetes at the manor house. And we used to see old Admiral Wake.
Who was Admiral Wake?
Well, he was the owner of the manor house at that particular time. Mm-hmm. And during one of these rough gales that we used to get, there was a couple of trees blew down. And one of them was a Scotch pine, and that was very springy, and we used to go and play on that. That was at the same time as when the army was stationed in the back of the church rooms. And they used to throw these tins of hardtack biscuits over for us to have a gnaw at, and we used to love them. Yeah.
Some lovely memories there.
Yeah, a bit of bully beef and stuff like that I used to throw over the brook.
Did you have vacuees living in the village?
Oh, yes, we had 2 vacuees in our house, and we had them in the village school as well. Yeah, we had one girl, and she stayed for a few months, and then she moved on to somewhere else, and then we had a young lad from the Elephant and Castle. He stayed with us. And then we had a chap from Holland by the name of Hans. He was got evacuated out of Holland, and he came to school, but I forget where he used to stay. I've got an idea he started staying with a schoolmaster for a while, and then I think he shipped on somewhere else.
Mm.
But, there was quite a lot of evacuees in the village.
And what do you remember about the village shops?
Oh, well, there was old Miss Holt's, whose aunt was called Miss Pinnington. Miss Kempster, I should say. She was a dear old girl.
Where was her shop?
Down opposite the Shanders.
Right.
Next door to the small house. They built an extension in the front, but if you went in at that particular time, there was a little wooden gateway there, and you used to walk down the path, and you could see the door and the side window, and all the old tins of baked beans and soups and you name it. It was a proper little grocery shop, come anything. And she also used to do the Sunday school, Miss Kempster. And Miss Holt used to help her out because she was a niece. And she was a dear old girl. She used to bring the sweets up. And
did most of the children go to Sunday school then?
Oh, yeah. You either went to chapel or church. Yeah. And
other shops?
The other shops was down at Miss Kempster's, was down the bottom end. She later married Mr. Maggs, and she called Maggsy's shop. She was another haberdashery, come grocery, come anything, you know.
And that's Mill Lane?
That's it. It's called Brick Wall House or something they're called now. Mm-hmm. But that was another little shop. And after the Maggses left, a bloke by the name of Wallace took it over, Mr. and Mrs. Wallace. Now, he was a prisoner of war with the Japanese, and he'd had a right old rough time. And ever such a nice chap, but his fingers had gone all stiff. He couldn't bend his fingers straight. And how he used to do it was everything was on his end of his fingers. He used to fold the cheese paper over and wrap it up. Marvellous how he done it.
So, what was there a Bunce's shop somewhere?
Oh, yeah, there was another shop opposite the Shanders, which used to sell lard and all that sort of meat and cold meats and stuff, you know. But that soon packed up when she died.
That's the house facing the crossroads?
That's it, yeah. The Marshalls used to live in one end. He was another nice chap. She was a Rickard before she got married, Mrs. Marshall. And then the Russells used to live in this end where the shop used to be.
And in Bates Lane, was there a shop?
Yeah, there was Mrs. Piddington and her husband. She used to look after the shop, and he was the village road sweeper.
And whereabouts was the shop in Bates Lane?
Right on that bend where them big box hedges are now. About halfway down on the bend there. I think they call... it's got an apple tree in the front garden. Because... what was it? Not Dick Bates. Gordon Bates used to live in the right-hand place. And the Piddingtons used to live in the left-hand, and that was the shop. And old Denny Purcell's, that was Denny Purcell's aunt.
I'm not sure where you mean where it is. If I'm at the top end of Bates Lane...
Remember I talked to you about Sott's Hole?
Yes.
Well, that's directly in front of it.
I know where you mean now. There are two cottages.
I think they call them Primrose Cottages now.
They do.
Yeah. Well, they used to have these old big Craven A tin plates stuck up outside, and turf and all that sort of thing, you know. They tell me they're worth a fortune if you can get all of them today. Anyway, that's where she used to live, and she used to sell lemonade and crisps and sweets and, you know, anything sort of business.
And where did Trevor Bates live?
He lived up the top, right on the corner, big old Georgian place it was. And when I lived at Church End and that, you could smell the old bed being baked, you know, when the wind was coming from the northeast. And, cool, that used to smell beautiful.
But he also used to be the milkman.
He used to be the milkman, old Trevor, yeah. And he got done 2 or 3 times for milking the water, putting water in the milk. Yeah.
What about
yeah, right, old. You got to watch him with the old weights and measures. Old Will used to re-weigh it when he came up, because that was always a few pounds short. Old Trev, he weren't slow in coming forward.
What about Brook End? Was there any down at Brook End, any shops?
Yeah, there was a shop right next door to where my old mate used to live. But I think it was Oakley's used to have it, but I can't remember what they used to sell in there, because at my time I think it was packed up, but you could see the old big window there that they used to have in. Probably old Gladys would be able to tell you, because she lived down that end.
Yes, she did.
She'd be able to tell you what they used to sell.
And we've already talked about the shops, where the shops are now. They were further forward. And you said there was a barber shop and a paper shop and a cobbler's shop.
Yeah, the barber and the paper shop was all combined.
Yes. And you had... Was it Eaton's was the barber?
The Eaton was the bloke that had got this barber shop at the back, yeah.
And Mr. and Mrs. Hall?
Mr. and Mrs. Hall, who used to live at the end of our row.
Were the
paper shop? Owners of the paper shop.
And the cobbler shop?
Oh, I forget what his name was. He used to come from away somewhere, but he'd got a bit of a club foot. But he was a good old snob.
That became a fish and chip shop, didn't
After he left, it became a fish and chip shop. Mr. and Mrs. Salway took it on. Oh. Yeah, he was ex-RAF.
And what about post offices? Because the post office seems to have changed so many times.
That was moving practically all the time. That was down at Walnut Cottage, and then that moved up to Sadler's Post, and then it went up to the Biddles, further up the main street, which was next to the Egg Hall.
Then opposite.
And then opposite went to where old Tom Gilbert used to live. They made that into a shop, and I forget the name of the people that were in there, but they didn't stay in the village all that long. And then from there, where did it go from there? There must have been another one before that, which I can't recall at this moment in time. But
before they built the new ones?
Before they built the new one, yeah.
Right. Tell me about your Uncle Will.
Well, he was obviously always interested in pigeon racing. And he probably done a bit of sweeping before he went in the army. But when he come out, he took up the old sweeping again. He used to cycle miles for a shilling.
You better explain what you mean by sweeping.
Sweeping chimneys.
So he was the local chimney sweep?
Well, yeah, among others. And he, as I say, he used to cycle all over the blooming shop. Wendover, Stoke Mandeville, right out to blooming Long Marsden and Wilston.
But he was from a large family, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, there was 10 of them in the family, and there was always lots of big families about in those particular times. And he went to work up the mansion.
Which mansion?
Holton Mansion, back of the camp there, which is now the officers' mess. And he was gardener up there, and like a lot of the others, old Alf Bunce was gardener up there. And he was put in charge of the goldfish ponds. He used to have to sit out and stop these herons from coming and having all the goldfish. They'd clear them out in the night.
So did he work there until he died, or till he retired?
He worked there until he retired, yeah.
And
but he moved from there. He was put in charge of the sewer beds, at the mansion, which took in all of Holton. And there was There's old boy Finney, I think, from Aston, and then there was a Churchill who used to work up there from Aston. And that was a big job up there, keeping that all above board, you know, as it should be.
But when he was doing his chimney sweeping and you got your motorbike, I think you used to go and do the villagers for him, didn't you?
Yeah, if he weren't up to it, or he got some pigeons he wanted, because he used to do a lot of pigeon racing. And they used to go abroad all over France and up to Scotland and you name it. They used to go all over the shop. Anyway, I used to go off and take them off to train them, drop them off at Reading and all, just outside of Reading and all over the shop we used to take them. And he used to stand there seeing them in, you know. And when he weren't doing that, as I say, he used to do a bit of gardening. He got a garden down the Warm, allotments. Well, everybody had allotments at that particular time. I started digging a 10-pole allotment when I was about 13, or perhaps 12. But they wouldn't let me have what's the name? I have it on my Uncle Ern's share until I was older.
Because in those, for the people who don't know, they used to, the allotments used to be 5 poles. And you were allowed...
There weren't many 5, they was 10s and 20s.
That's right, you couldn't have less than 5 poles.
No, you couldn't, well, nobody wanted less than 10. Mm. But there was some 15s, which was on the edges. I think the school used to have a 15 pole, if not 2 15s, because the little gate plus the 5-bar gate, we had a 15 pole at the top of the 5-bar gate and another 15 at the bottom gate.
In today's terms, would that be half a football pitch? 10 poles?
Oh, no, nowhere near. It's only about 9 square yards a pole.
Right.
You know, it's a good-sized lump, but it was, I should say it was about...
So that's 3 metres?
Yeah. It'd be about 3 metres square. And... that was a good lump to get on with.
It was?
Yeah.
Because we had the same. Can you tell me about your working life? Where did you go and work when you left school?
Well, I started at Hazel, Watson and Viney. And when I got called up for national service, I went into the army, and then when I came out, I went straight back to Hazel, Watson and Viney and spent all my time on the finishing end, running the parts and machines on the Reader's Digest magazines.
Oh, that was interesting.
Yeah. And when we weren't doing that, we was on paperbacks. And, of course, we done Lady Chatterley's Lover at the time. That was blimey, that was an edge you do. Couldn't get it done fast enough. Cool. We was working all the overtime. You could blooming well stick it in. Anyway, we carried on doing that, and right up until the time that they packed up was 1997. And then I went to work for Aura Electronics, all to do with these new mobile phones, you know. And then I packed up then. Once I'd finished me 12 months there, I packed that up and retired.
But I take it you're not sitting at home?
Oh, no, I've still got me. I used to dig 30-pole allotment when I was married and got children at home, down the Warm. So, and I used to do that, as well as do all the overtime that I could get hold of. And...
down the where?
Down the Warn.
What's the Warn?
Well, that's the allotments down below the Shandus, which there used to be, the old village tip used to be down there.
Because that's down West End.
Yeah.
And West End used to be called Tip Lane.
That's it.
Because of the tip at the bottom.
That's it, yeah. Well, that's where they used to tip the old tank too. You know, the old sewer tank. They used to go around emptying all the buckets in the from the houses. They used to tip that out into a sluice that used to go out in the field. There was big gullies out in the field where he used to run all across the field like a herringbone sort of a shape.
So tell me about your young lady that you married.
Oh, Cynthia. Yes, I met Cynthia in Hazel's. And at that particular time she was living at Southcourt. And one thing led to another, and then we got married. That was after I'd come out of the army.
And you had...
And we had 2 children, a boy and a girl, Stephen and Julie.
And they both married?
Yeah. Julie's got 3.
And Stephen had 4, did he?
5.
5, he had 5.
Yeah, 3 boys and 2 girls, and Julie's got 3 girls.
Ah, super. And so now you spend your time babysitting, I believe?
Yeah, well, for Julie anyway.
Doing allotments?
Yeah, doing her garden, doing your mother's garden.
There's one thing you haven't mentioned while we've been talking, and I know it exists because we mentioned it before, and that's the dark alley.
Oh, yeah, well, that used to be the main thoroughfare for old Trevor Bates at one time, when they used to bring the flour and whatnot down by canal, and whatever they needed in the village, they used to come down that track.
And can you describe to us where that track is?
Well, at the bottom of Bates Lane, there's what they call a bridle way. And if you follow that, it goes over the brook and straight up what we used to call Dark Alley, right the way up to the canal. And they used to offload the barges up there and bring them down to Trevor Bates at the particular time, was the main baker in the area. And he used to collect his flour and anything else he required. Corn for his chickens or anybody else's chickens and whatnot, you know.
So when there was a load coming, did he get local people to be employed?
Well, I expect he always had horses, as far as I was aware, for his bread carts and that, you know. So I suppose he loaded them up on the horses and brought them down, because it always seemed to me that there was a track where a horse had been walking up and down, but no carts.
Right.
You know, although it was wide enough. And when we were boys, anyway, that was all hazelnuts. Just past the bit where the brook is, when you got up to the deep part, right the way up till about Walton's Field, 10 acres. And there was some good old plums up there. They used to call them sugar plums, that used to be growing in the edge. And we used to get them a good tucking into when they become ripe. But then there was a spinney further up, and used to be a fair bit of game in there, pheasants and a few hares and that, you know. But
did you hunt them, the pheasants and the hares and things?
They used to go shooting them when the harvest time was finished. You know, you used to have a shoot and all that up there.
And would you get involved in that?
Well, we used to get involved with the rabbits when we was up there. Before we started getting employed, we used to go up there with sticks. And when the old binder was going round and that, they used to come running out these rabbits, and we used to chase them and whack them with sticks. And we used to keep out of the way of the guns, mind, because they used to be shooting. And we had 100 brace up there, I think, at one time, in the back of a trailer.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, there was a big round of elm trees up there. That used to be alive with them underneath there.
Because there used to be elm trees in Main Street, didn't there?
Oh, there's elm trees down Bates Lane. Yeah. You wouldn't think it to look at it today.
No, you wouldn't.
Anyway, there used to be a boarded ditch down Bates Lane. And that was opposite Sots Hole. And old Harry Purcell's relations used to live there, and they used to go out and wash in this boarded ditch, because they ain't got no proper sinks in the house. And that was still the same as that when old Ken Rawlinson's grandparents used to live there. You used to have a sink with a bucket underneath. They used to throw it out in the garden.
If you had to say your most vivid memory of Weston Turville, what do you think it would be?
Well, the big snow of 46, 47. The big flood.
When was that?
That was round about that time when the buses had to come round Church End. And
where was the flood?
Well, that was all in front of the Conker Tree.
In Main Street?
In Main Street, right across the road, because at the other side of the road there used to be a bit of a moat where Mrs. Palmer's house is, and that little bungalow there from the main moat. It's still there, part of it. That used to come right along the front there. And, of course, that went straight down, and that was ever so deep down at old Kingy's and old Birch's. So the old buses couldn't get through there. So old Oban, who's the bus company running the thing at the time, they kept coming round Church End till it subsided a bit. And then there was, of course, there was the army and whatnot, and that was all. And the plane crashing up Alton, a couple of planes crashed up at Alton Camp. We rushed up there, have a look at that. Took all the fence out, the old iron fence. And then there was the bombs that dropped in the other side in Long Hill.
Where's Long Hill?
Down below the school, where the school is now. That used to be a footpath down there and a right away down to Botany Bay Barns. And because a lot of people used to walk there Sundays. Because a lot of people used to walk Sunday afternoons all over, and used to walk down past that school. That was a right away and footpath down there. And used to come out by old Joey Whedon's.
So you're saying there was a school down New Road?
No, the school is where it is now in the playing fields. After the playing fields were acquired by the village.
It was to the right of the school?
That was it. The up-school approach, as they call it now. That used to be a driveway up there, roadway. And on the left, just where the bungalow is, there used to be a big old tin barn. And they used to put straw and hay and all that in there from the fields, you see. And that's where the new school was built. The village gave that, I don't know how many acres it was, to the Bucks Education, so that they could have a new school instead of the one that they got in School Lane. And that's how that come about. But behind that is what we call Long Hill. That was where them two bombs dropped.
Right.
And you can still see it today if you went up. Well, I don't know whether you can there. They've grassed it all, but that always used to be a arable field at that particular time. And when you were ploughing that, you could always see where the stones were, where the bombs dropped, because that was in a sort of a mound. That was all stones. Terrible field for flint, for ploughing. And right at the bottom on the right-hand side, near Dolly Lay's, they always used to be wet down there like an old pond. But I don't know what it's like now.
And now you live in Walton Place?
Yeah.
And how long have you been there?
Since 1960. Yeah, since 1960.
Is that when Walton Place was built?
No, that was built straight after the war.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to play in there. Old Arrowell was the first builder from Tring. And we used to run all around the place. That's where we used to have our Guy Fawkes Nights bonfires in there, in that field. We used to cut all the old good steak. The older boys used to cut the steak out, old Brenton bunts and that. And we used to dig a hole, and they used to plant this centre pole in, and we used to get old Charlie Purcell's horse, black horse, called Blackbird it was. And we used to harness it up. And then we used to take it all round the village looking for stuff to burn. And you'd be surprised how much stuff you got from the hazes. And anyway, that used to stand about 15 feet high, this bonfire. And then half the village used to come round, and we used to have a good old time at night. Yeah.
Nice memories.
Yeah. Everybody was enjoying themselves, yeah.
I must say, Mike, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You have got so many super memories, and we do appreciate you giving your time. Thank you.